welcome. So in the last lecture, we went over a function, which was this, it's kind of this machine that anytime I give you an input from here is going to give me a single output from here. Okay, and we talked about, and the notation for that is this. But I want to talk about a little bit of the terminology we use when we talk about functions, and we'll actually need this later. So it's good to start getting used to it. I know it's funny to learn a lot of terminology like this, but it allows you, it gives you a language in order to talk about functions, which are these very useful things. Okay, so the first thing is, so this S here, so S is going to be the domain of S. So S is the domain of our function f, right? Okay, so this is all of the inputs. So this is all of the inputs of f. Okay, so they're all of the inputs that make sense, right? Because there's going to be functions like with the square root, it doesn't make sense to stick a negative number inside the square root. So that would not be in the domain. So this is, so sometimes it's all of the inputs that make sense. Other times we've told you what inputs we want to talk about. Okay, because maybe if we're talking about some kind of cost function or something based on the number of cars, then your inputs are only integers. You're not going to talk about half a car or something like that. And sometimes you might want to specify, you're like, I only care about even numbers of cars. So I just want to talk about like even numbers as my inputs. And that's all I want to talk about. And you can kind of set that. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about functions, is you can tell me what you want your inputs to be as long as they make sense. And I can be like, sure, okay, that's how this function works. Okay. And then the other like part of lingo here, and there's a little bit of this distinction here, because I can tell you I only care that my output is a real number. And it's possible, though, that there are some real numbers that are never the output. But I still want to write it. I don't want to think about it. I'm just going to say the outputs are the real numbers. Okay? So T is the codomain. Is the lingo for that, of f. Oops, I was doing this in blue like my function f. So of f. Okay, so this is all the potential outputs. So all potential outputs. And here's a really great example that you've seen lots of times, perhaps, where this codomain, we usually write it as bigger than it needs to be. And this example is when you think about the function that sends x to x squared. You never hit any of the negative numbers, but you usually still say it's a function from the real numbers to the real numbers. You don't care that you never hit any of the negative numbers. Where that comes into play is in the image. Okay, so then we have the image of f. Okay, and this is also called the range. So now we're talking about the image of s, also called the range. Oops. I'm going to write also called the range. Okay. And so what, and we have special notation for this, and we write this like f and then like big S. Okay, and then I'll write kind of what this is. This is actually technically, this is a set of all f of s, so the set of all outputs, so that s is in this set s. Okay, so this is all the outputs of f. Is really what it is. So this is all outputs. Not potential outputs, actual outputs. So if we're talking about the function that sends x to x squared, oh, and so I want to actually, in my notes I emphasize that, and I want to emphasize that. I think this is important. This is all actual output. So this is all actual outputs of S. Okay, so it's not just what could happen, like any real number, if we're talking about the function that sends x to x squared. It's really what does happen. So it's all non-negative real numbers in that circumstance. So we'll go through examples. But let's just kind of draw the picture so that you can kind of see how everything fits in. So we have this is the domain. So this is the domain. Okay, and then this over here is the codomain. And sitting inside of the codomain is everything that the function actually goes to. Okay, so it has to include that. So it's sitting inside of here. Some portion of the codomain is everything that actually gets mapped to or hit here. Okay, so this here is the image or the range right, that's written like this. Okay, so then you could kind of picture it that it's like this goes into here, actually. So everything from here is going into this. It doesn't hit, maybe those are the negative numbers and it doesn't hit those. Okay, so I hope that made a little sense. This is just new lingo, and I will see you in the next lecture.